like as everything on the internet, there's no shortage of people taking things too far and getting too emotional about it and getting too invested about it. I think this is kind of, to loop this back to Misery, like this is very clearly an author venting about that kind of fan, right? Because he's like, he genuinely owes something to Annie, right? After she saves his life. And so he doesn't just want to turn her away or doesn't want to simply shut her down, but she has very specific ideas about both what Misery's story should be, because in the last Misery book, she dies in childbirth, and she does not accept that, even though it's plausible. But she has this whole rant about how, as a child, she would go see serials in the theater and in the cinema, and she would get upset whenever the authors would pull a fast one in the storytelling, right? Where they would set up a, like, she's especially upset about fake outs. And like, she has the story about how at the end of one episode, a character was locked in the trunk of a car and was driving off a cliff. And then the next episode started with him already having escaped. And she's the only one in the audience who said, no, like, that's not what you told us last week. Like, you cheated. You got us invested with a lie, right? And I'm not having it. Like, I want this fixed, right? And honestly, I kind of relate to Annie in that situation, right? Because I've been in that situation where I felt cheated by a story, where I said, you made me a promise, as in what kind of story this will be, or that there's a certain stake or a certain complication or a certain problem, and you cannot simply hand wave it away. Like, that's kind of the implicit promise of any story. And so she's kind of taking this sensible idea of, hey, respect me as a member of the audience. But then she takes it to the point of, therefore, I will break your ankles so that you can't run away and write the story the way I want you to. But that's which takes a step too far.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like it starts out, like, I think what makes Annie so interesting as a metaphor for the toxic fan is that she's not completely crazy. She starts out in a fairly reasonable place a lot of the time, right? Not liking the ending to her favorite character is one thing. Making the author change the story at gunpoint is a different story entirely. And Annie Wilkes, like, if she had lived 10, 20 years later, she would have been on Reddit or something, like, she would have been the mod of like a fan subreddit, and she would have banned people for having the wrong opinions. Right? Like, it's that kind of person.
Yeah.
And clearly Stephen King has encountered people like this. And so in 1990, he wrote a story where that kind of person is the villain. And I think that's cool. And then he ends up killing her with his typewriter.
Yeah.